Hello, welcome to Flower Juice. My name's John McDonald, and today we're going to have a look at making an arrangement not using fresh flowers. And really the inspiration for this was, I was in wholesalers and I saw this beautiful material. Now this is a dried foliage, like a ruscus that's been dyed. And I just thought these have beautiful shapes. So from seeing that, I wanted to just see what else would go with it. As you can see, these have got really nice lines and really an interesting colour. So I had a look around to see what else there was, and I found this beautiful magnolia, which I think gives a really nice contrast, or it really harmonises well. Also, this grass is quite cute. So really, when you're looking for things, you find something that gives you an initial inspiration, but then you can look for the other elements that are going to work really well with that. So I even saw like a little bit of blossom that potentially could go in, and I got some moss just for going down the bottom as well. So we're going to make this in this vase, and for our mechanic I'm going to use some old Agra wool, and the Agra wool is interesting in the sense that you can reuse it. So I've actually used this in a couple of containers and it was long. So Agra wool is basically like a rock wool. You can add water and use it for fresh flowers, and you can use it dry as a support for your flowers if you're using drieds or silks. So essentially that is giving us our mechanic that we're going to use for holding our flowers. Now, it's interesting that a lot of people basically get in touch and say, could you do a dried arrangement? Could you do a silk arrangement? And I think sometimes people think that maybe there's a lot of difference. Essentially, it's exactly the same. If you were using a foam or whatever mechanic you're using, you want it to be slightly stronger. So you want it to be able to hold these stems really quite securely. Like, as you can see, this is quite thick, this is quite strong. This needs a little bit more support maybe than fresh flowers. Saying that, some fresh flowers are quite strong as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to make an arrangement that would be good for a side table or in a hall, basically like a buffet arrangement or a counter arrangement. And I think the best place to start is probably with our foliage that I like. So this is really just going to create the background for our flowers. So straight away we're creating a little bit of a base for our magnolia. Now, when I first learned floristry, we would always try and do things like this without cutting them down completely. So if we can keep this as one branch, so much the better. And if we can leave a bit of stem on it, then it just means that if it ever gets remade, it will be much more useful for a future flower arrangement. This stuff's interesting. I think what would be interesting would be, yeah, that's better. With the Agra wool, there's a definite way that it has layers. So if you can work through these layers rather than across the layers, that works a lot better. So now we can basically look at our flower and see what we would like to do. Now, the great thing with artificial flowers is they're fully flexible, so we can move them into any position that we want. And actually, when you get them, they tend to have just been packed for transport, so they never are sitting in a very nice way. You're always probably better having a little play around with them. And then they will sit a lot nicer. So, the other main thing to think about when you're using artificial flowers or artificial material is the stems are going to damage any scissors. So you really need to use like wire cutters or strong snips. Like dried material, that's not so bad, but anything with a wire in it is going to cause a bit of damage to your tools, basically. I do like this. I think this stuff is quite fun. It's not necessarily the thing that I would have in my own house, but this is the great thing about when you're actually making flowers or working with flowers. You're not always making something that you would like. You're making things that other people would like, and they're the customer. They're the ones paying for the item. So it's what they like that's important. So we can really maneuver this. So the principles of making an arrangement with artificial flowers are still exactly the same. You're still wanting to create focal areas, you're wanting to create lines, you're wanting to create contrast between colour and texture. So we've got these big petals, small leaves. This is all going to basically add up to making an arrangement that's much more interesting for the eye. I'm just going to use a little bit of that moss just to cover the top of our Agra wool. And I think we will use our little cherry blossom because he's kind of cute. I'd like to get this flower in a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of twisting it back on itself, putting like a spiral on it just to shorten that head. And that's a good way of doing it without cutting it, basically. Now, I think we want to go to the other side with this. So by putting this little bit of blossom to this side, it's just taking that colour through, which I think is quite interesting. Now this is looking a little bit bare for my liking, so I think we're going to add a little bit more of our feature material. And it's really interesting how dried flowers, artificial flowers have really become popular again. When I first started in floristry many years ago, they were a big thing. And people really wanted something that was going to last. That was a big priority for customers. And obviously, dried flowers really delivered that. Yeah, so that little bit more foliage for lack of a better word, is quite a good idea. Now we can put our little blossom coming up the way. So yeah, just moving this up from down here, it looks more like a natural growth that it would have. And I think we need something here. And I also got these little seed pods, which I think are quite cute. So I've just put a wire on them. They just came in a bag with no stem, which is okay. So it's possible you could just wire them. And this just takes the eye down a little bit into our design. Now, I would quite like... No, I don't think we need another one. But for all I've got left of this, we might as well put this in. So I'm just going to see where would it be best to go. And I think actually the best place is so that it comes in here and breaks up this grass a little bit. This grass has got a little bit of an iridescence. It's not so natural, but I just like the contrast that it was going to bring to an arrangement. I think it's quite fun. And there we go. We've got our simple combination of dried and silk flowers to create a design that would look great in the hall, great as a buffet arrangement, and something that you won't need to do anything with. You can just make it, place it, and then just keep an eye on it. And at some point in the future, you can rework it and make something different. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you've not already subscribed, then click here to subscribe. We've got new videos every week, and we'd love you to join us for future designs. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon.